Have you ever pondered the enigma of spectral apparitions? Perhaps they carry a cryptic missive for us, or perchance they linger in a liminal realm between our reality and theirs, oblivious to the relentless march of time. Tales abound of long-lost kinfolk gracing our dreams and uncanny synchronicities that elicit a smile. Yet, for every heartening anecdote of ethereal visitations, there exists a harrowing narrative of an unwelcome presence, capable of inducing a shiver down one's spine. I could regale you with myriad instances where I felt disquiet or outright fear in the presence of malevolent spirits. However, the tale I am about to unveil has cast a sinister pall over my nocturnal reveries for over 17 years. I dare say this account will compel even the staunchest skeptics to cast a wary glance into the shadows before succumbing to slumber. I was a mere 11 years old when I first beheld her spectral form. My parents had ventured out for the evening, leaving me to indulge in a pay-per-view screening of Scream. It's been ages since I've watched a PPV flick, but back then, once ordered, the movie would loop continuously for 24 hours. Deep into my second viewing, I rose from the couch to quench my thirst in the kitchen. As I made my way toward the staircase, a shadow flickered in the periphery of my vision. Pausing momentarily, I drew a fortifying breath and pressed onward toward the stairs. Upon my return to the basement, an ominous ambience permeated the air. The room appeared to cloak itself in an even deeper darkness. Settling back into my seat to resume the movie before retiring for the night, I glimpsed an eerie silhouette near the bathroom door. Fixing my gaze intently upon the apparition, it vanished with a blink. The film was clearly getting under my skin. Then I heard it, a faint whisper, reminiscent of a young girl's voice, followed by a more assertive command, "Let's play." With two older brothers, I suspected a ruse. I flicked on the light, half expecting to catch them in the act, wielding a flashlight and a tape recorder. These were the same siblings who delighted in orchestrating pranks, like hiding a toy record player in my room emitting cacophonous train sounds, then locking me in, clutching the doorknob to thwart my escape. It wouldn't have been beneath them to tease me during a horror movie. With the room illuminated, I admonished, "Ben, Phil, cease this mischief, or I shall inform Mother." Eerie encounter. Silence enveloped the room like a heavy shroud. Exhaustion weighed upon me, pressing my eyelids down as I reclined on the couch, absorbed in the final moments of the movie. Just as I teetered on the brink of slumber, a faint creak echoed from Ben's bedroom. Fatigue dulled my senses. I brushed it off, unwilling to rouse myself over trivial noises. Yet, an unsettling sensation crept over me, an inexplicable feeling of being observed. I attempted to dispel it, yearning only for repose. Then, a slow, labored breathing filled the air. Initially, I attributed it to my own unease, a figment of my overwrought imagination. Holding my breath in a futile attempt to silence the phantom respirations, I awaited confirmation. Nothing. Resolving to swear off slasher films indefinitely, I shifted on the couch, seeking solace in its embrace. "Can you play now?" The voice, soft yet insistent, emanated from somewhere within arm's reach. Without turning, I retorted, "I'll inform Mother if you persist." In moments, Ben and Phil materialized at the landing, unperturbed by my distress. "What's got you so riled up?" Ben inquired, their demeanor betraying no hint of concern. "If you don't desist, I shall report you to Mother upon her return." My words faltered as the realization dawned upon me. Both brothers had been upstairs all along. A chill coursed through me as I confronted the unsettling truth. Abandoning the couch, I ascended the stairs with haste, eager to escape the eerie atmosphere. Alas, my respite was short-lived. 30 minutes into my restless vigil, the gentle creak of my bedroom door shattered the silence. Startled, I bolted upright, eyes widening in terror. There, in the dim recesses of the room, stood a young girl with ebony locks cascading around her shoulders. Clad in a once-white nightgown, she fixed me with an unblinking gaze, her lips stretched into a disconcertingly wide grin. It was a smile tinged with artifice, akin to those worn for family portraits. I sought to scream, to cry out in terror, but before a sound escaped my lips, she silenced me with a slender finger pressed against her grinning mouth. Hush, now it's my turn to hide. My cry pierced the night, resonating louder than any sound I had ever produced. To my astonishment, my mother burst into the room, concern etched upon her face. "Sweetheart, what's the matter?" she inquired, her gaze shifting between me and the now vacant corner of my chamber. Stricken by bewilderment, I found myself unable to articulate a response. Was it merely a nightmare, a figment of my imagination run wild? One thing remained certain: it had ceased. Brushing it off as a vivid yet fleeting dream, I retreated to the solace of the living room couch. A few weeks elapsed, and dusk descended upon the neighborhood. Engaged in a spirited game of Spot with Phil and a throng of local children, I reveled in the camaraderie of the night. Spot, a nocturnal rendition of hide and seek, enthralled us with its simple rules. Within the confines of our block, we flitted about, flashlights in hand, heedful to respect the boundaries of our neighbors' yards. No sooner had the game commenced than I seized upon what I deemed the ultimate hiding sanctuary: the concealed depths beneath our neighbor's deck, sheltered behind the bulk of their lawnmower. Nestled in my covered haven, I awaited discovery with bated breath. Minutes ebbed away until a glimmer of light pierced the darkness, heralding the approach of Mike, the designated seeker. Abruptly, his beam fell upon me, illuminating my refuge. "Spot!" he exclaimed triumphantly, his eyes alight with victory. I marveled at his unerring aim, pondering whether Phil had divulged my sanctuary. "How did you find me? Did Phil betray my secret?" I queried, probing for an explanation, but Mike appeared preoccupied, his gaze flitting about the surroundings. "Where did she vanish?" he muttered, a hint of uncertainty tainting his voice. I pursued her halfway down the block, only to watch her seek refuge beneath this very deck. Uncertain whether he jests or speaks earnestly, I dared to inquire further, my heart pounding within my chest. "What attire did she don?" I ventured, a chill coursing through my veins at his response. "A lengthy, ash-colored nightshirt," he recounted, a puzzled furrow creasing his brow. It was most peculiar. A child, perhaps, lost in the night. Emerging from my concealment, I met his gaze, lingering in silent contemplation. "Mike, you're the first person I've laid eyes on since I've been under here." His face, half shrouded in the dim glow of the flashlight, betrayed a fading color. "Whatever, this game's for infants anyway. I'm heading home," he muttered, visibly shaken yet striving to maintain composure. "You're it now." With that, he thrust the flashlight into my chest and briskly made his way toward his house. With Mike's departure, a sudden realization dawned upon me. I was not alone. Struggling to divert my gaze from my erstwhile sanctuary, I aimed the flashlight back toward the street. Each step felt like a monumental effort, as if unseen hands emerged from the earth, ensnaring my ankles with their ominous grip. In a frantic bid to flee, my legs betrayed me, sending me crashing face first into the damp grass. Dazed, I lay there for what seemed like mere moments, before mustering the strength to lift my head. Bare, pallid feet loomed mere inches from my face. "Ah!" I cried out, jolting into a seated position, supported by trembling hands. Speech eluded me. The girl, the same apparition from my room, stood over me, the vacant grin now twisted into a grotesque, enraged snarl. That was my hiding spot. Her voice, a shrill shriek akin to nails on a chalkboard, pierced the night air. Her shadowed eyes bore into me like searing daggers as tears welled up. Then, in a chillingly subdued tone, she uttered, "It's your fault." It dawned on me. She wasn't referring to the game anymore. With a sudden lunge, she descended upon me, arms flailing wildly. I grappled with her frozen wrists, screaming for help into the darkness. As I glimpsed those malevolent eyes one final time, everything faded to black. I awoke to the sound of approaching footsteps. "I'm sorry," I gasped, weak and drenched in sweat. A hand reached out, grasping my arm. It was Phil. "Are you all right?" he inquired. "Everyone's heading home. We couldn't find you, and it's getting late." Rising to my feet, I realized I was no longer in the neighbor's yard. Somehow, I had ended up in my own driveway, just a stone's throw from the front steps. "Are you injured? What happened?" Concern etched his features as my silence persisted. I don't know," I stammered, still grappling with the inexplicable events. "Well, let's head inside." "It's nearly midnight," Phil urged, his worry palpable. "Wait, what?" I uttered, feeling a mounting sense of unease about what transpired during my blackout. It was imperative to confide in him, despite the risk of being labeled insane. I saw this girl. Just then, the porch light flickered to life, and our father emerged. No words were needed. His presence signaled it was time to retreat indoors. The nightmares commenced that very night. Lying in bed, I stared fixedly at the ceiling, battling against the encroaching drowsiness. With each flutter of my eyelids, her visage loomed before me, suffused with loathing and contempt. I resisted sleep for as long as possible, but eventually succumbed to the enveloping darkness. They say dreams fade with time, becoming fragmented and elusive. Yet the terrors that haunted my slumber over the ensuing nights remained as vivid and chilling as they were 17 years ago, resurfacing intermittently to ensure I never forgot. My initial dream unfolded innocuously enough. I found myself with unnamed companions, trekking towards a familiar locale we dubbed Cherry Hill, a sprawling expanse replete with trees, trails, and an aged train trestle. Engaged in typical childhood pursuits, we scouted for the perfect spot to build, settling on a secluded area adjacent to the trestle. As I busied myself with constructing a makeshift ladder, the sound of shovels abruptly ceased behind me, replaced by an ominous chill creeping up my spine. Whirling around, I discovered my friends and their tools had vanished without a trace. The surroundings plunged into darkness, shrouded by towering trees obscuring the sky above. Straining my vision, I discerned a familiar figure clad in a ghostly nightgown across a murky stream. Panic seized me, rendering me immobile, as she advanced without moving a muscle, emitting a spine-chilling cackle that belied her youthful appearance. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to quell the thunderous drumming of my heart. I hesitated to open my eyes, trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts, unsure if I dwelled in reality or the realm of dreams. Before I could discern the truth, a gentle tug jolted me back to consciousness. "They're gone now. Will you play with me?" The voice echoed the one I'd heard in the basement, devoid of menace, instead tinged with a hint of fear. No longer gripped by dread, I braced myself to face reality. Yet what greeted me was a nightmare incarnate. She loomed mere inches away, cloaked in blood without a visible wound, her once pristine gown now a tattered tapestry of crimson. With each tremor of fear that gripped me, her satisfaction grew. Attempting to flee, I stumbled, crashing onto the cold earth. As I regained my composure, my gaze fell upon a ghastly sight. "Oh my God, no." The words escaped me in a horrified whisper as I recoiled. Before me lay my friends in a gruesome tableau, accompanied by a blood-soaked shovel. Standing over them, she flashed that sinister grin once more, a silent admonition in her gesture. "Sha." I awoke on the living room couch, disoriented. While my tendency to sleepwalk wasn't new, the night's horrors lingered. Determined to stave off sleep, I drowned out the darkness with mindless infomercials. Come morning, I joined the family for breakfast, concealing my turmoil beneath a facade of normalcy. Sharing my ordeal seemed futile. After all, I was the family's resident purveyor of absurd nightmares. Resolving to confront the malevolence alone, I sought solace in prayer. That night, I knelt beside my bed, hands clasped in supplication. "Dear Lord, I implore your aid. An evil presence haunts me, its purpose unclear. Have I transgressed? I beseech you, Lord, to intervene. I vow never to seek your assistance again. Amen." For the following 2 nights, my slumber remained undisturbed. Perhaps there was indeed efficacy in the act of prayer. Saturday arrived, and with it, an invitation for a street hockey match with friends. Engrossed in the game for a good 2 hours, the suggestion to visit Cherry Hill sent shivers down my spine. "I'll pass this time," I ventured, but my companions were adamant. Despite my reluctance, I relented, joining them on our bikes. We lingered near the entrance, improvising ramps from discarded boards. Though hesitant about venturing toward the trestle, I found solace in the company of others. Surveying potential fort locations, I proposed a secluded spot, only to be overruled. As we approached the old trestle, apprehension gnawed at me. Disregarding my concerns, my friends continued towards the water's edge. Suppressing my unease, I followed suit. Drawing closer to the lookout ledge from my dream, an inexplicable force seemed to guide me. A glance at a nearby tree revealed etched letters spelling She. That was the breaking point. Abandoning the notion of fort building, I hastily pedaled home, trembling as I reached my driveway. Ignoring the concerned inquiries of friends, I retreated to my bed, wrestling with despair. Why have you forsaken me? I lamented to the ceiling, tears marking my surrender to sleep. My subsequent nightmare was concise yet peculiar, resembling a slideshow unfolding before my mind's eye. An aged farmhouse gradually succumbed to ruin, each image portraying its progressive decay. Amidst this desolation stood a solitary tree adorned with a tire swing, surrounded by frolicking children seemingly oblivious to the crumbling edifice behind them. As the structure deteriorated, the youthful figures diminished until only one remained. Witnessing her transition from melancholy to ire, her gaze locked onto mine, accompanied by that haunting grin. Her silent presence persisted, shrouded in darkness, until a whisper pierced the void. What shall we play next? For nights on end, I evaded my room, concocting excuses to prolong my waking hours. The prospect of encountering her in the dark solitude was more tolerable than facing her in the realm of dreams, where she wielded control over my subconscious. Desperate measures ensued, from copious doses of caffeine to the glow of the television, and the solace of music. Daytime slumber became my refuge, shielding me from her nocturnal influence. I pondered whether her malevolence thrived on my fear, finding solace in the safety bestowed by daylight. Weeks passed, and she faded from my thoughts, relegated to the recesses of memory. However, her reappearance shattered this illusion of reprieve. This ultimate encounter, shrouded in eerie ambience, marked the zenith of her unsettling presence, a nightmarish final that continues to haunt my consciousness. I awoke to the wind blowing my curtains across my face. This was significant because I have terrible allergies and am unable to sleep with the windows open. As soon as my eyes opened, I could hear faint laughter coming from the front yard. It almost sounded like the overused laugh track that goes with any clip of children playing in movies and television. I attempted to sit up and quickly realized I had no control of my own movements. I felt paralyzed. Before long, I was lifted out of bed and placed, standing on my bedroom floor. I began walking toward the window, still unable to move my own limbs. At the screen, I watched as this beautiful little girl skipped and sang through the grass without notice of the world around her. This time, I didn't feel as if she knew I was there. Mesmerized for nearly a full minute, I finally snapped out of it to find I was no longer in my own room. From my surroundings, I could tell that this bedroom belonged to a girl. The walls were covered in bright pinks, purples, and yellows, with tons of princess doll houses, Barbies, and dresses scattered along the floor and in the open closet. I stood in the middle of the room, still unable to move, and watched as the door flew open and that same little girl from the front yard came running in, crying. When she dashed by me without looking, I didn't think that she could see me. Had I become the ghost? The girl jumped into the closet and her eyes locked onto mine. As footsteps grew louder down the hall, she looked at me, put her finger up to her mouth, and gave a soft "She." Who was she hiding from? Why was she crying? I stood and watched as a tall man wearing a baseball cap, red t-shirt and jeans, marched into the room with a menacing, come out, wherever you are." The little girl kept her stare on me as tears rolled down her face. I tried to ask him who he was looking for, but he didn't respond. Couldn't he see me? His tone quickly changed. "Where the hell did that *** go?" I still couldn't tell if he knew I was there, but I knew she must be hiding for a reason, so I decided to keep my mouth shut. He gave one last look around the room and left. I watched him walk down the hallway until I could no longer see him, and when I turned to the closet, she was gone. In the blink of an eye, all of the room's bright colors turned to shades of gray. I heard shouts coming from another room in the house. Without hesitation, I ran toward the screams. When I got into the living room, the little girl was lying on the floor. This time she was wearing that same nightgown from my earlier visions. The man in the ball cap was standing over her, and I could tell that she was uncomfortable. "Let's play a game, sweetie. It's called the quiet game." Although his words were sweet, I knew his intentions were anything but. She was terrified. Her eyes were telling a story of fear and sadness. I panicked. "Leave her alone." I yelled the words as loudly as I could. I'm not sure what I was expecting to happen, but my shouts fell on deaf ears. It was no use. She turned again to look at me. I began to feel lightheaded, like I was losing oxygen. Everything went dark, but I could still hear the faint cries of a scared little girl. The screams were followed by wet, gurgling sounds, and then I heard a sound that still gives me goosebumps when I tell this story. As if he was right by my face, I heard the man whisper one last request. "Shh." I woke up right after that and sobbed in my bed for what seemed like hours. Aside from the occasional nightmare, I haven't seen the little girl since. Although I haven't seen her, I still feel like she's around. I've spent time in libraries and news archives hoping to come across a story of a familiar missing girl, or maybe even something on the man in the cap. I believe my dream of the deteriorating house means the potential scene of the crime is long gone. I suppose it's best that I leave it be. But the question I fear will forever go unanswered is, was I just a kid with an overactive imagination, or was a frightened little girl reaching out for help that I failed to provide? Sweet dreams.